Well, hello there. My name is Norman Clature, and I name things. And most recently, I just named Google's large language model BARD. And before that, I was the one that named OpenAI's large language model ChatGPT. How did I get these names? What does it take to be a professional namer? Well, let me take you on a little journey called Naming Stuff with me, Norman Clature. Well, folks, it all starts back in the 1970s with a little company you might have heard of called Chevrolet, right? That's right, Chevy. And my old man was the first professional namer for Chevrolet back in the 1970s. And he was the one that came up with the Chevy Nova for the South American and Mexico market. And we learned a lot about the Chevy Nova in the Mexican market. We realized that was a terrible name, but it informed us and we improved our processes. And my father passed along to me all the guidelines of how to name stuff. And so in the early 2000s, I was hired by Pixar. And my first job over at Pixar was a little movie you might have heard of called Cars. That's right, I was the one that named it Cars. There was a lot of options on the table, and I was like, this movie's about cars, we should call it Cars. And also Cars 2, Cars 3, and Cars 4. I named all those movies, and it's a great success. So how did I get to ChatGPT, and then how did I get to BARD? Well, that's a great question, okay? Well, ChatGPT is a really easy one, okay? So the boys over at OpenAI, Sam and Elon and all those other gentlemen, they came up to me and they said, Norman, what are we gonna name our large language model? And I'm like, okay, well, what does it do? And they're like, well, it chats. So okay, well, it's a good start. First name Chat. What else is it? And they're like, well, it's a generative pre-trained model, or GPT. I'm like, well, what about if we take Chat and we combine it with GPT and we smash them together, we got ChatGPT. Boom, amazing. And just like that, ChatGPT, huge success. Huge success. Look at the millions of people within days talking to ChatGPT. Maybe a week after that, I got a call over from Sergey over at Google, and Sergey was like, "Hey, Norman, we are playing catch up over there with ChatGPT, and we have our own language model. We'd like you to name it for us so we can release it." So I looked at my schedule. I cleared up my schedule because Google calls. I clear up my schedule. Sergey and the gang. Well, the first thing that came up was they had a large language model named Lambda. So I was like, okay, what does it do? And they're like, well, it chats. So I'm like, well, what if we take Chat and we take a Lambda and we smash them together and call it Chat Lambda? Chat Lambda. And the response was, well, they were a little concerned because Lambda had been getting some bad reviews, some bad press as a result of one of the developers. You might remember Blake Lemoine, I believe is the pronunciation of his name, said that it was sentient. There was a bit of a problem, so they want to kind of, steer away from calling it Lambda, which I thought was great because Lambda is a terrible name. No one wants to say Lambda. It's got like a B and a D in there. It's like Lambda. It's just names that have silent letters are very hard to pronounce. Okay, so in general, that's one of the first things you learn in naming school is you don't want to have silent letters in your name. Okay. So we started thinking, okay, well, my first thought was this. I was like, Sergey, listen, okay, this thing is $1 billion idea, so why don't you just call it Bill? And they thought about it for a while. You know how the people at Google, they thought about it for a while. Well, Bill, we got Bill Clinton. You could call Bill Clinton. Bill Paxton, the actor. It was like, just call it Bill. It just could be just Bill. What would we just call it? William, like William Tell, William Penn. These are amazing characters. And William Wordsworth, just a lot of Williams out there. And then all of a sudden I had this genius thing. I was like, well, if this thing is making up stuff, you know who else made up stuff? William Shakespeare, okay? William Shakespeare spent his whole life making up words and stuff, okay? And that's a lot like the system. So I was like, what if we named it William Shakespeare GPT Lambda? And they were like, that's too long. Okay, William Shakespeare Lambda. And they're like, no Lambda. William Shakespeare Bot. Still too long. And in the end, we're like, well, what else did they call William Shakespeare? Billy? So I was like, no, the BARD. And then, next thing you know, the BARD. And we just settled on it, BARD. And it's an amazing name. And I think Google did a great job of naming their large language model. And, I got a lot of work to do because there's a whole bunch of other companies that have large language models that they need named. So I'm going to go around and start naming them. Sparrow, maybe. Jim. There's got to be one that's named Jim. Chuck. And of course, I'm gonna name one after my old man, Sid Clature. Sid, rest in peace, Sid. You know, I'm just doing your work, Sid. So, thank you very much for watching. I enjoyed giving this little talk about large language models and naming. And if you have a question about naming, or you need something named, a baby, you want it named, I can do that. You have a company, you want it named, I can do that. You know, basically anything that you want to name, a car, I can do that too. I got a lot of that. So I got a side hustle where I just help people name their cars. I'm just really good at it. All right, so just give me a call, Norman Clature. I'm available. Norman Clature at namingstuff.org. And hit me up. Yeah, okay, bye.